The clock on the platform showed 11:57 p.m. Only 3 minutes remained before midnight. Blackridge Station was silent, almost unnaturally quiet. The old train station sat at the edge of a forgotten town somewhere in northern Pennsylvania. Rusted rails stretched into the darkness like scars across the earth. For most people, the station no longer existed. No trains stopped here anymore. No passengers came. But tonight, someone was waiting. Ethan Cole sat alone on the wooden bench beneath a flickering yellow lamp. The light buzzed softly above his head while the cold wind pushed dry leaves across the empty platform. Ethan checked the message on his phone again. It was the same message he had received 2 days ago from an unknown number. If you want to know what really happened to your brother, take the last train at Blackridge Station. Midnight. That was it. No explanation. No name. Just the message. Ethan hadn't heard anything about his brother Lucas for almost 6 years. Lucas disappeared one night without warning. No body. No clues. Just gone. The police called it a missing person case. But Ethan never believed that. Lucas wouldn't just disappear. Not without telling him. The cold wind blew harder. Ethan looked down the empty railway tracks again. There was no sign of any train. And yet, the message said, "Last train." Suddenly, a distant metallic sound echoed through the darkness. Clang. Clang. Like wheels hitting old rails. Ethan stood up slowly. The sound grew louder. Clang. 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 A faint light appeared far down the tracks. But something about it felt wrong. The light wasn't steady like a normal train headlight. It flickered, like a dying bulb. Then the sound stopped. Silence returned. Ethan's heart started beating faster. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe someone was playing a sick joke. Then the loudspeaker above the platform suddenly crackled to life. A distorted voice filled the empty station. "Attention passengers." The voice sounded broken, like an old recording. "The last train will arrive shortly." Ethan looked around in shock. The station had no electricity. The loudspeaker hadn't worked in decades. Yet the voice continued. Destination, unknown. The lights on the platform flickered once. Twice. Then went completely dark. For a few seconds, Ethan stood in total darkness. Then the train arrived. But it didn't sound like a normal train. It sounded heavier. Slower. Like something dragging itself along the rails. When the dim light returned, Ethan saw it. A long black train slowly rolled into the station. Its metal surface looked old and scratched. Some windows were cracked. Others were completely black. The train finally stopped in front of him. The doors opened with a loud metallic hiss. No conductor. No passengers stepping out. Just darkness inside the train. Ethan hesitated. This felt wrong. Everything about it screamed danger. But the message echoed in his mind again. If you want to know what happened to your brother. Ethan stepped forward. The moment his foot crossed the train door, the platform lights went out again. And the doors slammed shut behind him. The train started moving instantly. Ethan spun around. The station outside the window quickly disappeared into the darkness. Now he was trapped inside. The train car was dimly lit by weak overhead lights. The seats were old and torn. Dust covered everything. But something else caught Ethan's attention. Every seat was occupied. Passengers were sitting quietly. But none of them were moving. None of them were breathing. Slowly, one of them turned its head. Its skin was pale. Its eyes completely black. And its mouth slowly opened. "You shouldn't be here." The train suddenly sped up. The lights began flickering violently. And from the next train car, Ethan heard a familiar voice. "Ethan, help me." It was Lucas, his missing brother. But the voice sounded wrong. Broken. Like something was wearing his voice. Ethan ran toward the next train car. But the passengers began standing up. One by one. Blocking the aisle. Their necks twisted unnaturally as they stared at him. The train suddenly plunged into a dark tunnel. And in the darkness, every passenger started whispering the same sentence. "Midnight passengers never leave the train." Ethan realized something terrifying. This wasn't a train. It was a trap. And somewhere inside it, something had been waiting 6 years for him. Ethan's heart pounded as the passengers slowly stood up from their seats. Their movements were unnatural. Slow, stiff, like puppets controlled by invisible strings. The dim train lights flickered again, throwing long shadows across the aisle. Ethan stepped backward. One of the passengers tilted its head sharply to the side. Its neck cracked loudly. Then it spoke in a dry whisper. "You are not on the list." Another passenger stood up. Then another. Within seconds, every seat in the train car was empty. They were all standing in the aisle now, watching him. Ethan's breathing became faster. "Where is my brother?" he shouted. The passengers didn't answer. Instead, they all pointed toward the door connecting the next train car. Slowly. At the same time, the door creaked open by itself. Darkness waited on the other side. And from somewhere deep inside the train, Lucas's voice echoed again. "Ethan, hurry." Ethan didn't hesitate this time. He ran. The moment he entered the next train car, the door slammed shut behind him. This car looked different. The lights were brighter here. But the seats were completely empty. At the far end of the car, someone stood facing the window. A tall figure wearing a dark coat. Ethan slowly walked closer. "Lucas?" The figure didn't move. Ethan stepped even closer. "Lucas, it's me." "Ethan." The man slowly turned around. For a second, Ethan felt relief. It was Lucas. Same face. Same voice. But something was wrong. Lucas's eyes were completely black. And his smile was too wide. "You came," Lucas said softly. Ethan froze. "What happened to you?" Ethan asked. Lucas didn't answer. Instead, he looked out the window. The train was no longer moving through normal tracks. Outside the window was endless darkness. No trees. No towns. No sky. Just black emptiness. Lucas spoke again. "This train doesn't go to places." He turned his head slowly toward Ethan. "It goes to people." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Lucas's smile disappeared. "The train only stops for people who are supposed to die." A cold chill ran down Ethan's spine. 6 years ago. "I got the same message you did," Lucas continued. Ethan stared at him. "You mean, you boarded this train too?" Lucas nodded slowly. "I thought it was a joke." He pointed toward the door behind Ethan. "But once you enter, the train never lets you leave." Suddenly, a loud scream echoed from the first train car. The passengers. They were screaming now. But not in pain. In excitement. Lucas's expression turned serious. "They know you're here now." "Who?" Ethan asked. Lucas leaned closer and whispered. "The conductor." Right at that moment, heavy footsteps echoed from the other side of the train. Thud. 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 Each step shook the entire train. Lucas grabbed Ethan's arm. "We have to move." They ran toward the next train car. But the moment they opened the door, Ethan wished they hadn't. The next car was filled with hundreds of passengers, standing shoulder to shoulder, all staring directly at him. Then every single one of them spoke the same sentence. "New passenger confirmed." The lights suddenly turned red. A loud mechanical voice filled the train. "Midnight passenger detected." Ethan felt his chest tighten. Lucas pulled him backward. "We have to reach the engine before the conductor finds us." "Why?" Ethan asked. "Because that's the only place where the train can be stopped." Behind them, the passengers started moving. Not walking. Crawling. Their limbs twisted in unnatural directions as they rushed toward Ethan. Lucas grabbed a metal bar lying on the floor. "Run!" They sprinted through the next train car. The doors slammed shut behind them as the crawling passengers crashed against the glass. The train suddenly accelerated. The walls shook violently. Ethan and Lucas finally reached the last door. The engine room. Lucas took a deep breath. "Once we go in, we can't come back." "Why?" Ethan asked. Lucas looked at him with fear. "Because the conductor isn't human." Before Ethan could respond, the door slowly opened by itself. Inside the engine room was complete darkness. Then a deep voice echoed from the shadows. "I've been waiting for you." A tall figure stepped forward. He wore a long black conductor's coat. But his face had no skin, only muscle and bone. And where his eyes should have been, there were two burning white lights. The conductor smiled. Two brothers reunited. He slowly raised a metal ticket puncher. "But this train only needs one more passenger." Ethan grabbed Lucas. "We're leaving." But Lucas didn't move. Instead, he looked at Ethan sadly. "I can't leave." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What?" Lucas stepped backward toward the conductor. "I've been here too long." The conductor laughed softly. "Every passenger eventually becomes part of the train." Lucas looked at Ethan one last time. "You still have a chance." Suddenly Lucas pushed Ethan backward toward the emergency door. "Jump when I say." The conductor roared in anger and rushed forward. Lucas tackled him. The train shook violently. "Now!" Lucas shouted. Ethan opened the emergency door. Wind screamed through the train as darkness rushed past outside. Ethan hesitated for 1 second. "Lucas." Lucas looked back with a sad smile. "Tell them the train is real." Then Ethan jumped. Ethan woke up hours later beside the abandoned tracks near Blackridge Station. The train was gone. The station was silent again. Everything looked normal. For a moment, Ethan thought it had all been a nightmare. Until he looked down at his hand. A small metal ticket rested in his palm, stamped with a single word. "Return." And somewhere far away, a train whistle echoed in the darkness. Ethan slowly sat up beside the cold railway tracks. His head was spinning. For a few seconds, he didn't remember where he was. Then everything came rushing back. The train. The passengers. Lucas. And the conductor. Ethan quickly stood up and looked around. Blackridge Station stood exactly where it had been before. Old. Abandoned. Silent. It looked like nothing had happened. The broken wooden bench was still there. The flickering yellow lamp was still buzzing. Even the clock on the platform still showed 11:57 p.m. Ethan frowned. "That's impossible," he whispered. He checked his phone. The time was 12:48 a.m. Almost an hour had passed. But the station clock hadn't moved at all. Then Ethan remembered something. He slowly opened his hand. The metal ticket was still there. Cold. Heavy. Stamped with one single word. Return. Ethan felt a wave of dread. Lucas's last words echoed in his mind. Tell them the train is real. Ethan turned around and walked quickly toward his car. He needed to leave this place as fast as possible. But just before he reached the parking area, the loudspeaker suddenly crackled again. The same broken voice spoke. Attention passenger. Ethan froze. The voice continued. The next train will arrive soon. Ethan turned slowly toward the tracks. But there was no train. Only darkness. Then something terrifying happened. The station clock finally moved. The minute hand slowly ticked forward. 11:58 p.m. Ethan felt his stomach drop. That can't be. The loudspeaker crackled again. Passenger Ethan Cole. Your ticket has been issued. Ethan's breathing became fast. I already left the train, he shouted. But the voice continued calmly. All passengers must complete their journey. Suddenly the wind stopped. The entire forest became silent. And far down the tracks, a faint light appeared again. The train was coming back. The ground beneath Ethan vibrated as the train approached. But this time, it was faster. Much faster. Ethan jumped into his car and turned the key. The engine started. He slammed the gas pedal and drove away from the station as fast as he could. The road twisted through the dark forest. His headlights barely cut through the fog. After several minutes, Ethan finally slowed down. His hands were shaking. It's over, he told himself. I got away. But then, his car radio turned on by itself. Static filled the speakers. Then the same deep voice spoke. The conductor. You can't escape the journey. Ethan slammed the radio off. But it turned back on instantly. You jumped from the train. The conductor's voice became colder. But you never left it. Ethan's heart pounded. What do you mean? He whispered. At that moment, something moved in the rearview mirror. Ethan slowly looked up. His blood froze. Behind his car, there were train tracks. But that road never had train tracks before. And right behind him, the black train was following. Not on rails, but sliding silently across the road. The train whistle screamed through the night. Ethan pressed the gas harder. The car sped faster and faster. But the train stayed right behind him. Then suddenly, the road ended. A massive dark tunnel stood ahead. And above the entrance was an old rusted sign. Blackridge Tunnel. Ethan slammed the brakes. But the car wouldn't stop. It was pulling forward on its own. Like an invisible force was dragging it. The conductor's voice whispered through the radio again. Every passenger must reach their destination. The train doors slowly opened behind Ethan's car. Inside the darkness, hundreds of black-eyed passengers were waiting. Watching him. Smiling. Ethan finally understood the truth. The train never stopped hunting. Once you board it, you belong to it forever. The car disappeared into the tunnel. The train followed silently behind. And the forest became quiet again. 3 days later, a police officer drove past Blackridge Station. He stopped suddenly. Something new had appeared on the platform. A fresh poster nailed to the wooden wall. It was a missing person notice. Ethan Cole. Age, 28. Missing for 3 days. And beside the poster, someone had left a small metal train ticket, stamped with a single word. Next. Far away in the darkness, a train whistle echoed again.